Let's hear it for your Sydney Swans.
Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods, a fan podcast of the Sydney Swans Football Club.
So to all you loyal Swans out there, you just can't get enough of the red and the white.
Fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved Bloods.
G'day there, Signets and Swanlings. Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods. You're joined as always by the crew from Sydney. I'm Harps and I have Noddy on the line.
That's right, you loyal Swans fans. Today we're talking about our win over the Blues in round 10 and going to look ahead to the game on Sunday against a pumped up Melbourne, or NAM. So remember, if you like what you hear, give us a follow and let's kick things off with a quick game recap.
Yep, up the Bloods. Friday evening, 39,000 people. Wet and windy SCG. Got it over Carlton. Decent side. Won by 16 points. 11 goals, 12, 78. 9 goals, 8, 62. It was a very, very tense game, frankly. There was a lot of tension all the way through quarters 1, 2 and 3. And then the quality came out at 5-goal final term and got us home with a bit of a wet sail to a, I thought, Noddy, extremely relieved SCG crowd, frankly. There's a lot of happy faces on the way out because I think a lot of us thought that was one we might throw away right at the end. So good to get it done.
Definitely, mate. And I think that's where I'm at the moment. Made comment of how slippery, again, the deck was. Obviously made worse by the amount of water that we've had with recent weather. But, yeah, just Disney on ice down there. So everyone's slipping around. And while I'm on that theme of Disney sort of rules my life at the moment with 2 young kids. Cars is constantly on. I think my son's seen it like 100 times, seriously. And obviously Lightning McQueen's favourite best pal is Toe Mater, and one of his catchphrases is "Get her done." With a bit of a southern drawl there. So they're my 3 words, and they're similar to yours, just with more of an accent. Get it done. Got it done. Yeah. I just think, your point about relief, it's nice we won. I mean, it was, you could really feel those 3 relieving goals towards the end. Probably Heaney to ice it there. But it would have been a real bummer if we didn't get things going. As you said, it was a pretty slow start in the first half, or 3 quarters really. And then, just kicked away in the fourth, which was nice. But again, not a game plan you want to rest your laurels. want to start, you don't really want to have that as the extent of your bag of tricks. But sometimes you need to just win, and we won.
We did. I mean, we were down every change, right? You guys very nervous at halftime, and look, rightly so. I mean, we'll get into the game in a moment, but first half I thought they looked good, and we looked quite lucky, but stuck with them. But look, the class I thought came out in the final quarter. Big players, good goals. Grundy, Heaney, Amadi, Campbell. Some of our best players. And in the end, look, it was quite comfortable, wasn't it? Last 15, 20 minutes or so was a relief. It was a fairly easy game, at least in game time, not necessarily stopping the clock. Those weren't actually my 3 words, though, Noddy. Get it done. I had a different 3 words.
Yeah, okay.
They are my sweet prince. So sorry to see Aaron just hobbling off, got clattered by Grundy. And you could hear the sadness in the crowd. There was a nice round of applause as he was off, and I haven't heard how bad the concussion is, but he's at least out for this week. And again, he tried very hard in the half he played. So I was genuinely upset to see Aaron take that knock, and I hope he's back very soon.
Likewise, mate, and we'll just clarify the round of applause that you refer to was I hope you feel better, speedy recovery, we'll miss you, rather than the flip side of that interpretation. Yes. But, look, as Nugget pointed out, someone posted on the groups, Jesse Motlop gave, it wasn't a huge push, but there was definitely a push in the back of Grundy as he launched into the air. And there was a lot of talk about this in the preseason, but it seems like AFL headquarters have not chosen to, they've been sticklers on the not 15, and then in more recent weeks, and this round included, not standing the mark or inside the 5, rather than pushing players into marking contests, which can lead to concussion. And this was an incident of that, I think, or an example of that rather. It's just a shame because he was playing good footy, obviously. He's been in and out within games, but he's definitely been holding his spot. He's sort of been a bright light over the past month, to be honest. But
yeah,
so hopefully he's not out too long. You'd imagine he's out at least for the whatever it is, the minimum amount, which is I think 11,
12 days.
10, 11 or 12 days. 12 is it? Yeah. So that's a real shame. I was confused that he was playing, or he started predominantly key defender. I always feel a little bit more relaxed when he's a key forward, just because I think he reads the game a little bit better when he's not having to mark people. But look, I don't know. Not the only tarnish. I mean, it's the only injury, but not the only tarnish in terms of outs. But we'll go through that as we work through it, mate. But Marn Grook. It was a great event. Obviously, we had the ceremony before the game, and it always sounds really cool with the didgeridoos post goal.
Yeah.
Not as much Seven Nation Army, even though we were willing it on. But yeah, I do love the didgeridoo.
Yeah. It was a fairly. I mean, it was a great spectacle. I agree. It was a good game to watch. Tense game, so exciting game, and pre-game, I thought the entertainment was great. As were you after the goals. I was struck, and a couple of us said this, but it was actually quite heavy with Carlton fans, right? It was nowhere near 50-50, but there were a lot of Carlton fans in the crowd. And I thought quite a notable absence of Swans fans, actually. I don't know what the percentages that made it up were. But look, I think probably some of the fans voting with their feet a bit after a pretty appalling little run, just choosing not to show up on a cold Friday, which is somewhat understandable.
I was trying to think about this before the game, because we noticed that before we went up to the seats, right? We're in the Four Pines bar having a beer, and we did meet, we're like, geez, there's a fair few Blues fans here. And we've got to remember they're a powerhouse. And the second they get anywhere near an even ledger, the lid comes off and it's baggers of flaggers. So I'm not saying that they're there yet, but they're also that type of club that have fans all over the country, a little bit like Collingwood, but maybe obviously not as successful in recent years. And so, I was a bit nervous, but I was thinking, maybe if they are travelling from interstate, they've come up earlier and they're able to get to the ground earlier. Whereas, I think a lot of people in Sydney would have been finishing work and making their way in after, or you can eat chicken wings or whatever you guys got your gob around. But the other thing was gate. The ticketing, the gate system, the entry system at gates, at least ENF, I think it was the whole ground actually, went down for a point in time. It was like 15, 20 minutes just before the game was, just before first bounce.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I was thinking maybe that had impacted the amount of red and white in the ground, but as it turns out, it was still 39K as you mentioned. So, we're holding that average of 39 from last year. But yeah, I was struck by an overwhelming amount of navy blue in the crowd. But
yeah, and nice and loud too. I mean, and look, they were. I mean, they were ahead in the game for much of it. And really, look, I think we'll talk about like larger reflections on the game, Noddy, but I thought we were lucky to put them to it, because they were sloppy at times and made some mistakes. They could really have run away with it, particularly through the middle. I thought we were lucky that they had some average skill errors and some bad decisions, and we were able to turn it on for one quarter, which was enough.
Yeah, I mean, Harry Mackay out on the full, that would just kill you, that set shot. I mean, he made up for it afterwards with a nice conversion, but that kind of stuff is coach killer, almost stinker of the week territory. But we're not commenting on the opposition stinker. But
So,
So
what do you think of the game overall then, Noddy? How did we get the win?
yeah, look, I think we stuck in the game. It was, as we said, it was pretty dour. Neither side was, really, um, what's the word, dominant.
Yeah.
They'd sort of punch ahead and we'd sort of keep within striking distance. So that was, pleasing. But again, I think it's hard to know how much the weather conditions played a part, and it's probably just diplomatic to say a large part, in that it's a heavy ball. It's going to be a little bit scrappier. It's going to be a little bit harder to come by goals, but by the end of the game, we'd kicked enough goals, and obviously Isaac Heaney had a fantastic game. We'll go through his game, but
Yep.
I think as the time wore on, he just looked like his hands were drier and drier. But look, I'm not sure. Like, I think ultimately it's that point you've already made. It's just a relief to have won, because if we'd lost that game, that would have really sort of, I think, thrown things back
Yeah. It would have been hard to come back, wouldn't it? I think.
Yeah. It was a must win, and we won. It wasn't pretty. It was, in fact, quite ugly, bar a few amazing moments that we'll touch on. But yeah, look, happy to get the win and happy to be a step closer. As we spoke about last week, it was bloody frustrating to lose against the Bombers the way we did after having nabbed the Giants game pleasingly, right?
Yeah.
I think you've got a point here about Essendon. I said it last week. We made them look good, and
look, I agree. I mean, I felt sitting at that game on Friday that at 3/4 time I thought I'm going to be really, really peed off if they lose this, because they're good enough to beat them. Carlton aren't playing that well. Carlton are a hot and cold team anyway. And it reminded me of the Essendon game. Just a middling team, which we just didn't play well enough and lost to, frustratingly. So, look, I was delighted that we had the quality to get the final quarter and get the win. But then, sure enough, next night, Essendon lost by, I think, 94 points or something, right?
Mm.
And they've scored 6 goals in 6 quarters, right? Since that first half against us, where they scored, I think, 9 goals. 9 goals. Enough to win the game. And then 2 goals in the second half against us. They scored, I think, 4 this week, right? So, look, it was pleasing that we were able to play poorly and stick with Carlton when they were playing quite well, and then when they started to slip, I thought we showed some real high quality last quarter. So that was good to see.
I mean, both sides shocking goal efficiency, right? Like about the same by the end of the game, same amount of inside 50s. Not to be confused with 50-meter penalty, which I kept saying last week, but. They just didn't take their chances. I think at halftime it was 20-9, and they were only up by 6 or 7 points, right? So that would have been super frustrating for their fans. I mean, by the end of the game, same situation for us, really. 11 goals from 53 inside 50s, and they had 9. So it was a relatively low scoring affair, but again, there was reasons for that. I think in terms of just gameplay, it was relatively even in terms of, who held the ball. But in terms of stoppage and clearance, we were the clear winner there. We dominated. In fact, it's part of the game that's incrementally getting better. And perhaps that's Cox's new game plan. He did speak about that. We wanted to be more of a contested team, and that's we're sort of showing that we are improving slightly, because Carlton's kind of known for their contest, right? Cripper through the middle, just their tough, ball winning ways. But to win the contested possession in the end, what plus 11 was great. Also having won all the, all stoppages, and then they marginally beat us in uncontested turnovers, right? So uncontested and intercepts. But I think. I think that the takeaway is that it was just good to win. I think I've already said that. It's one of those games where we're super relieved on the night. I rewatched the game. I rewatched the mini. I was in a much better mood than I was after the Bombers game, that's for sure. I was willing to watch the replay. But I just think, it's hard to know whether it was a mature team response in us getting it done, or it was just the a few brilliant individual efforts. And I'm leaning more towards the former, but there certainly were some finishes that can be sort of attributed to some of our bigger players you've already mentioned.
Yeah, maybe it's a bit of a head scratcher or a chin scratcher, right? Whichever way you prefer it. Maybe just think about Cox's decisions pre-game. There was a lot of talk about Hayden being out. Hayden wasn't injured. Hayden, I've spoken to several people about this, and pretty unanimously we thought he was kind of top 5 of our players all year. Like, don't think you can fault his effort. But I mean, personal views, but I think many would agree. I don't think you can fault the work he puts in. He's kicking goals, decent rucking, decent forward work. I was really surprised by that. And then we talked also about Florent being put as sub. Again, another player, not an injury question, not a kind of fitness thing. I think a statement to Florence, right? And he got over half of football in the end because Francis was injured in the middle of quarter 2. But Florent, I think, had his best game of the year. So maybe there's some credit there to Cox and the statements he made to the players after what was, a really toothless performance a week before.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what it takes, if one sub is the thing to kickstart it, then that's a job well done. You just want to make sure that he sort of rolls on with it. And there's a lot of other players, and he was one of these players that was speaking about over the past month or so. In that, we're sort of expecting more because we've seen him put out more. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's a tactic. If you're gonna, going back to your first point, I was a little bit confused that Doss was the one that got dropped, but and then seeing Hamling start as key forward and Francis back, I much prefer them the other way around. I like them in the team, but I might not have done it at the cost of Hayden McLean. But anyway, maybe that's the thing again, like you're saying, like Florent, that sort of kickstart him. And I mean, really, he's probably an immediate in, but we're going to talk about the ins and outs after the Bob medal. But I was happy for Ollie because it seemed like he had a little bit more energy and a bit more determination. Yeah. So maybe that's enough. And, maybe the likes of Hayward or Lloyd or some of these other guys that we know can play a bit better, maybe that's the tactic that they to start from the sub, but probably not for those other guys. They're a little bit more important, I think, structurally or in terms of leadership for Lloyd especially. But we'll see how we go.
Well, look, and again, we're going to have to make some serious changes, right? We've got at least 3 outs. So that's before we start to talk about options as well. So the 3 forced outs. Maybe not the time to really exercise his discretion, Cox. But look, I guess just the point, it was notable. We were talking about Cox's decision making and questioning why he was making some decisions against the Essendon game, putting certain players where they were. And I must say, when I saw Hayden out, I was really surprised by that. But look, to your point earlier, got the job done, right? Played very well that last quarter and stuck with them all the way through. So I guess we got to credit the structures he set up and the team he put in.
And look, there's they've got access to seeing where these players are at on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, and they've also got the numbers and the people crunching the numbers and putting it forward and saying, look, there's a bit of a downward trend here. Maybe Hayden would benefit from a week in the VFL just to work on something and get the confidence back up. But by all accounts, he had a pretty quiet game in the VFL. So, but anyway, we can talk about ins and outs after because we do have a lot to go on there. Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the game, Donny, or should we hit the Bob medal? Because lots of good performances, a couple of real standouts. Into the Bob.
Yeah, I think so, mate, because generally speaking, I think we touched on it. Crappy first half, pretty quiet, pretty inaccurate, came home luckily and won the game. So that's kind of it. But as we said, moving the right direction in contest and clearance. So pretty happy.
Yeah, look, and the winners of the Bob medal, just a reminder, it's our version of the Bob Skilton medal, 3-2-1 points for the best Swan on the ground each week, and then we'll add it up at the end of the season and see if we can get the the winner to speak on the podcast. But the points this week are pretty much spread amongst those players in the fourth quarter that really turned it on. So I'll go first. A player who's had a very good season. We talked about leaders in the team needing leaders, and Grundy has really stepped up. 1 point to Grundy. I'm not a stats man, Noddy, but I was shocked to read he had 47 hitouts. He was only relieved of the ruck duties 5 times by Laddens. So massive nice work by any standards. Kicked a good goal last quarter, got us going again, got the crowd going. He's running the boundary and high-fiving the fans as well after that.
That was Tom Papley-esque, wasn't it? I thought that
was good, wasn't it? I know.
That was a highlights reel, big time.
Well, he had energy. I mean, for a man his size, he had energy all the way through. And look, it caps off what's been a good mad May for him so far. Noddy, yeah. He's had a good few weeks in a row. So, 1 point to grab.
Agree, mate. And obviously up against Carlton's second string ruck, Pitternet, with Tom de Koning out. That was a big out. That was a belief before the game. Yeah, because he's very damaging for them in the middle. But I think he's, as you said, he's had a couple of weeks now where he's putting it together. His execution is a bit slicker. 19 disposals at 79%. That's pretty bloody good for a ruck, and 12 contested, 8 clearances, and as you said, that really important goal to kickstart us. So, well done, Gruns. It's really pleasing to see that there's consistent form being patched together around this really, really tough time. So he is standing up as a leader as well, which is also very pleasing.
Yeah, and look, big week ahead, right? He's up against one of, if not the best in the game, right?
Yeah.
So, we need that form to continue into the Melbourne game. And then look, we really split these next two, and it's going to be no surprise to the listeners. We ended on 2 points for Chad. You want to talk through Chad, Noddy? I know you're impressed by him and Heaney.
Yeah, definitely. He had a quietish second quarter, but other than that, he really was the driving force in the guts for us, and ended with 30 disposals at 57%. So a bit down on his recent weeks. He was up around high 70s in the past couple of weeks, which was pleasing. But this was sort of a bit of a just get the ball forward kind of game, in the weather. But 10 contested possessions. Again, he's really working on his contested work and his tackle effort, which is really, really good to see. And 2 goals by the end. I don't know if you heard it when they were announcing the players before the game, but I swear I heard Chad box office Warner.
Yes.
When they announced his,
so I did.
I don't know if that's a common nickname, but or one that he's suggested the Swans media people run with. But I thought if anyone could pull it off, it's Chad Warner. Yeah.
Well, I thought it might be Warner Brothers, box office,
of course.
Warner Brothers maybe.
Yeah,
but look, it's a good nickname. I liked it too.
Does Corey get that one as well?
Well, yeah, good question. Corey actually was mistaken a number of times, at least from my side of the ground, for, if we could have a drum roll, please, the man with 3 votes. No surprises. We have a number of medium-heighted, mid-length, blonde-haired players on our team, but this man stands tall above all of them. Isaac Heaney won the Goods O'Loughlin medal. I'm not a stats man, Noddy, you know that, but even I was impressed by his 38 disposals and almost half a kilometre of meters gained. He was everywhere. Great game from Heaney. What do you think of Heaney, mate?
No, it was unbelievable. The heat was on fire. He started pretty slowly. He only had 5 touches in the first quarter. But then, just was off the leash. It's funny. He just kept bobbing up, didn't he, in the right place.
Yeah.
He was everywhere again, played a lot of forward, kicked 2-5 in the end. And, if he kicked a bag of 5 and 38 touches, I mean, that is a serious game for like one for the ages. But even that stat line as it is on the night, he was a clear winner for the Bevy of Blood's medal and also the Goods O'Loughlin medal. But he just he's really putting together the performances reminiscent of last year. And you could probably say he's doing it in a way that was similar to last year, where there would just be bursts of brilliance. But I think this was a bit more this was sustained. Certainly from second quarter onwards, he was just everywhere. It needed to be, and he was copping a lot of attention. I'll tell you what, I don't know
He
how
was.
we don't get holding calls. You see the weirdest holding calls get paid, and you're in the center bounce, and you're watching like Cripper just like monster him, and you're thinking, okay, all right, but true to form, Isaac is a warrior. He just gets on with it, and I don't know if he was the difference, but he certainly was a big difference.
Yeah, yeah. I was sitting next to Chris, who many of the listeners will know, former presenter, and new dad. That's why he's taking the year off. But he said to me somewhere in the third quarter, he said, Heaney's just bloody hard, isn't he? He's just so hard. Like he just gets hit and just gets up and goes again, and his fitness is elite, his kicking's elite. A few too many points, I must say. Would have been nice if he capped off that run through the middle, the 5 or 6 handballs, and then he just dribbled into the post, unfortunately. That would have really got the crowd going. But can't fault him. Like it was an exceptional performance.
Yeah. He had a couple of posters. Yeah, and they would have been he obviously kicked that amazing goal from the pocket on the left, which was, obviously an incorrect call from the umpires, but Star Firm will take it. That was not the reason Carlton lost. But I just
hey,
what's that?
Call it as you see it, ump.
Well, that's it. We had 7 50-meter penalties the week before, but anyway. So look, I think if this is the balance of contested and clearance work that allows Heaney to get off the chain when he needs to, but still does that just the super high work ethic back and forth, because he's just running back and forth, and he started at deepest full forward, I think, when first bounce happened. We made note, so he's probably playing a little bit more forward, and maybe that's why they decided to run with Hamling and then have Francis back. I mean that's probably separate to the decision. Heaney can kind of just play any line wherever he needs to. But he just struck me as very clean on the night. Like there were multiple times where he'd just sort of peel off and do a lovely relieving kick on the left to the wings, and just exhibiting his skills really, and his hardness, as you've already said. Like he's unreal. Like if we had, we are blessed with a lot of high end talent that's come to us through a bit of luck. Chad Warner at the late pick that we got him at, and then also good preparation through the academy. So we're seeing, obviously Goulden's out, but last year one of the main reasons we were so successful was had these 3 guns just pulling punches when they needed to, together individually. Obviously we're 2/3 of that this year, but the likes of Rowan and Jordan and some of these other really big role players have stepped up. So, but I think we're still sort of working on the game plan is the key, and the consistency.
Still got a lot of outs, right? Still got a lot of outs. To your point though, a couple of players who came back in, honourable mentions and made a difference. Amadi, I thought was good. You mentioned the quality, right? And he was there or thereabouts for 3 quarters. But our sound guy Mark was saying to me he's going to make a difference, right? I think he's going to win it for us. He's saying it the whole game, and look, sure enough, a couple of really nice goals at the end. Great mark for that last goal, which was, I think, probably the defining goal. It was the goal that gave us enough of a gap to win the game. Look, real shame he's back out again for the he's going to miss 3 weeks, I guess, for anyone who hasn't heard. 3 weeks for the bump. So suspended past the bye now. But look, made a good impact again on the time he was on back in the team.
Yeah, I was a little bit nervous that this was the game he was coming back into. Obviously a must win in front of a home crowd, but just in really bad weather. And I was just a little bit nervous of his hammies. Obviously that first one back at top level is always like, oh, I hope he makes it through. But I do think he was probably a little bit more argy-bargy and less. He's obviously been out for a bit, so he's lacking that sort of that game fitness. But as it turns out, he did a completely useless act at a ridiculous time of the game. Like that bump on Boyd didn't need to happen.
Yeah.
It didn't need to happen, and it didn't need to happen when it happened.
No.
And so, obviously, I think McInerney's the other one, right? So if we're just going to segue into it, we'll go back to some of those other honourables, but I'll just make the point. McInerney has received 1 week for his bump on Silvani. That's now a trend, I think, of Juzzies, some of this loose bump and bodywork stuff. Obviously, Silvani was checked for concussion but went back on, but then went off at halftime with a groin issue. So I don't know. I think Juzzy was pretty stiff to get 3 weeks on Starcevic because Starcevic had his own existing concussion issues. But now with a guy who didn't even go off with concussion, like they're choosing to, it's all in the grading, right? It's 3 weeks if it's a concussion, but it's 1 if the act looks bad. So if this is where we're at in the game, I guess we can't really you can't really comment, but it's frustrating to lose a Marty when he was just going to be better for this game next against Melbourne. And it's frustrating Juzzy was sort of, battling his own consistency, but still playing a role. Like and going back to honourable mentions, he was one of the guys that again had a pretty solid game,
Yeah, he did.
24 touches and a goal. I think did he miss one? Or, no, that was last week when he was frustrating misses.
There was. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, and his decision making was, your point is right about the loose body work. And this is his second suspension, right? He was suspended for the 3 weeks, wasn't he, earlier in the season?
Yeah, it's just coming across as potentially a little bit loose and a little bit of a propensity to, do that. You don't want to say dog act because that sounds like you're speaking as if you're an opposition fan. But you do want to tighten it up, don't you? You sort of, and you have to sort of.
He doesn't want to be missing games, right? And he is,
That's it. That's it.
He's starting to put some form together. Decision making is getting better with the ball. Disposals are getting more efficient. He'll be more frustrated than anyone to be sitting on the sideline, right? He's just started to get back in and get it together a bit. Played really well, and you're right, just a reckless bump, and here you are, right?
Yeah, definitely frustrating, but yeah, hopefully he can come back in and play a bit tighter. But yeah, as you say, he's definitely been playing well. So yeah, look forward to him coming back in. The other one I wanted to mention was Gus Bus.
Yeah, you got your wish, Noddy.
Oh, mate.
Full game.
Long time coming. I mean, I think a lot of Swans fans were a bit perplexed that he kept getting the sub vest, especially that last one when Patton was sub. But yeah, he kept 21 touches, 4 clearances, almost 500 metres gained, just looking sharp, giving options, tough around the contest. He just needs, he's gonna fluctuate. Some days he's going to get more touches, be a bit more impactful. Obviously, kick that goal in the was that the Bombers game against? It was when Hayward fed off to him, or dished off to him. But yeah, he's not gonna do it every game. But the point is, he just needs to be playing games, and I really hope that he can that he doesn't get dropped. I don't know why he would, but yeah, if anyone who's spent so long at the sub and then comes back in and I don't know. Yeah, I don't think he's on the chopping block at all, but I'd be a little bit nervous for him. But yeah, I want to see him just get more and more game time because I think he's the type of player that's really gonna revel.
And as you said, most meters gained on ground, right? Which in a wet day that's worth a lot, right?
Did he get bets on ground for meters gained?
I think at 473. Yeah, I think he was more than even Heaney.
Oh, I've got Chad Warner here, 630. That probably should have been a stat I included. But that goes back to his poor efficiency, right? So 57% is just hacking the ball out, and that makes sense that he's got 630. McGovern and Hollands were second and third, and then Sheldrick on fourth. So yeah, not for our second best. So still a relevant point there, Harps. Don't beat yourself up by any measure.
I was on the app earlier and realised I hadn't scrolled down to the top.
That is the kind of mistake that I make all the time. Okay, so don't feel bad about yourself.
Podcasts.
We can feel bad about ourselves together.
Before we move on, because there's a lot to talk about with Melbourne. Melbourne are off a big win. They'll be coming in hot.
Some very good players in the team. We're going to have to make some pretty serious changes. We'd just like to shout out for Laddams for the bicycle kick, which really got the crowd going. Like if that had gone in, I think it would have been an all-time great at the SCG.
Goal of the year.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And look, for the inventiveness, the balls to go for it, he won a lot of fans for that overhead kick. Someone did say to me on the way home, he does realize that he doesn't have to put a kick above his head, right? He can grab it with his hands and then kick it through regular style. And I thought, I mean, yes, that is a fair point. But still, just for the flair, for the inventiveness, shout out for that overhead kick. It's a beauty.
I think the look that he pulls off, I think was proportionate to that play. I think if anyone's going to have a crack at that, then it's probably going to be Pistol Pete. It's one of those things where you look at it and go, "Wow, that could have been really amazing." Then you go, "Why don't you just grab it and kick the goal?"
Yeah.
But that's Pete. I like that. That's him. He's an enigma in a way.
Right.
I think he's certainly matured a bit. Like his first couple of seasons, he was a little bit all over the shop in terms of decision making. But yeah, it's good that he's having a crack and contributing.
Yeah. And another solid game. And Noddy, let me ask you, would you prefer someone grab the ball and kicked a forgettable goal or attempted an overhead reverse bicycle kick and missed?
Forget it. Is this a serious question? Okay.
It's not a serious question. No.
It's not a serious question. I think on a night like this, catch it and try and kick the goal. Yep. But if we find ourselves 60 or 70 points up, sure, have a crack. Bring out the Ronaldo, as you say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's look ahead because we mentioned the Demons. They got over the Lions in the weekend, and they'll be thinking to themselves, we beat the grand final winners, and we have the grand finalists away this week, so they'll be more than up for a game against us. But equally, they've lost a few this season, although they're on a bit of a run. They've won 4 out of the last 5. Richmond and Eagles in there, scoring a lot of points. They've scored nearly 100 points or over in the last kind of 3 to 4 weeks. So plenty of firepower and plenty of confidence, I expect. Noddy, we were talking about changes, right? We've got at least 3 outs. Francis out, Amadi out, McInerney out. We covered all of those. But then maybe Mills back, Adams back. You'd expect Hayden to come back. Yeah, look, lots to cover, right? It's a big game and another one we really need to win. So where do you want to start in the Melbourne game?
Oh, just, I guess, two teams kind of around the same mark. I would have thought that we are a little bit I think that their 4 and 6 records jumped up on me a little bit, to be honest. Because we saw their first 4 or 5 games of the season and thought they were a complete rabble. I think they started with 4 or 5 losses. But yeah, they've sort of bounced back to where we are. Basically, the only difference between us on, both on 4 wins, 6 losses is the percentage. That's the only thing that splits us at the moment. And they had that big win against Brisbane up at the Gabba. So just last week. So yeah, you called out some of their wins and losses. They've had some big losses against kind of strong teams, but they lost to North by 59.
Yeah.
Gold Coast by 58, Geelong 39, Essendon 39, that's a head scratcher, and Hawthorn 35 as well as GWS 3. But yeah, so I don't know, it's a bit hard to read where they're at. I think they've, they've probably got a few injuries, but they've got their gun players. I don't know where Lever's at. I don't think Viney played the previous week, but
Viney's still out, concussion. Yep.
Is he? Yeah. So yeah, look, I think 2 teams in a similar place playing for their season, and it'll be Melbourne at home, so there'll be a crowd of about 15,000, and yeah, I think I'd rather them have won against Brisbane this round to come back to Melbourne with just a slight air of confidence, because if they'd been flogged in Brisbane, they come home with a point to prove, right? And then we seem to get it. We seem to always find ourselves playing teams who've unexpectedly, had a big loss, so that they've got a full head of steam coming in the following week. But yeah, we find ourselves Nam 11-point winners over the premiers last season, and it's a bit of a tricky one to call. I mean, if we go back to those guys, those potential ins that you mentioned, Mills played half a game of footy after his most recent setback, plantar fascia, and did all right by all accounts, to almost 20 touches and a goal, played off the halfback and a little bit through the guts, and Adams himself had almost 30 touches. So Hayden had a relatively quiet game. Buller got a goal, so they're probably the tools potentially in the mix. But yeah, we've got the players to cover the two tools going out, Francis and Amati, in the team already. It's just whether or not we want to bring in another tool. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned Max Gawn, and just how incredible he is.
Yeah.
He's got it all, right? He's kind of like how Darcy Cameron's playing for Collingwood at the moment. Like, he's just so lethal, going back with the flight of the ball, and his defensive marking is a real benefit to Melbourne. Switching back to Max Gawn now, so obviously Grundy and Gawn, they played with each other a little bit while Grundy was at Melbourne, played more VFL obviously, but so he'll have the insights there. Obviously JJ as well, but yeah, I am worried, just because it's another must win, and with them bouncing back against Brisbane, I'm probably like, oh, okay, well, maybe they're getting it together at the wrong time for us, right time for them. Because I think most teams in this bracket, right? How many teams are on 4 and 6? It's Carlton in 11th, us in 12th, Saints in 13th, Melbourne in 14th, and Port in 15th. These teams, somehow Essendon's above us, but we'll leave that where it is. But those teams I just mentioned, they're all playing for their season. So every game until the bye is just a critical game, and of course, coming up against Melbourne is sort of like a little little semi-final in a way.
Tough game. Look, and maybe it sounds strange, but I remember Stephen May last year was exceptional. I guess he was against Logan. I can't remember who he was up against, but I think it was probably Logan. Well, maybe a good week to be without a key forward, a key tall. Maybe Hayden goes down there. Laddams, can be Hamling, I suppose. But I think my point is, it's a week. I think we're going to need goals from all over the park. We're going to need one or two from most of the midfielders, most of the forwards, right? I think, to get home over this, because they've got enough strength in key players in the back, and we're with enough injuries or outs in our forwards. I can't see someone getting 4 or 5 goals up against them.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing there, and you reminded me, was obviously Hammer's role is to take out their best key defender, and obviously Wiedering is one of Carlton's best players. And so maybe just in your mention there of how damaging May can be when he's on, is maybe Hammers does stay key forward and just plays that role on him, just tries to get him out of the game. But in doing that, sort of, who do you it's, I guess it's a structural thing, and it's got a tie in with a game plan, which you think is going to be based around contest again. But Melbourne's also known for their contested work, so Gawn, Petrarca, Viney. Viney's out still. So Clayton Oliver, he's been tagging recently. So
yep.
Yeah, and they've got a bunch of depth and role players. But interesting to see that Bailey Fritsch came on from the sub. I don't know how long he's been there for, but I guess there was talk of him being a little bit of a selfish player. But so maybe this is part of that. But I mean, I think he played. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but he kicked 5 against us. He came back from an injury and kicked 5 on us. I don't know if that was last year or the year before, but they all sort of merge into one game, don't they? But as you get older,
Well,
so
Nadia,
I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
I've known you long enough to tell that we're both nervous about this game.
Yeah, I think you're right. You also took a photo of me at 3/4 time because you were looking for the face of tension, wasn't it?
Tension. Yeah, it
Tension,
was.
and it was
And you
me.
looked tense. Yeah, you did look
Oh,
tense.
mate, yeah. I didn't realize how tense I was until you showed me the picture. I was like, oh, okay, that's quite tense.
Well, I think
yeah.
we're in for another week of it, mate. I'm hopeful that
Mm.
we can just kick away and score
18
18 goals or something. But I think it's going to be a tough one. But again, we have the quality. We have the players. We just need to put the form together, I think.
Yeah, I think, if Mills is ready, and I'd say he probably isn't because he's only played half a footy, maybe he comes on from sub. Maybe, I would probably be inclined to rest him, or not rest, but just play another 3/4 of VFL. Like, don't rush him back. He's missed so much footy. Adams in would be good, just for a bit of a leadership sort of role. McInerney off. Totally different players, but you've got players who can come in and do that. I think if we brought Campbell back into the wing, he's been playing well as that sort of wing half forward, and sometimes pressure forward. But Campbell can definitely play on the wing as Juzzy does, with precise kicking. So there's ways we can cover it, and certainly, as we've already said, McLean and maybe Buller. But Laddams is already in the team. You'd think he'll stay there abouts.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, I think, if Mills, Adams, and McLean come in, are we a better team immediately? I think if they were fully fit, then you could probably say yes. But that's not to overlook the contribution that Francis has given over the past month, and McInerney for his decision making when it's on, and obviously Amadi, who's looking more and more mature, I think, as that dominant key forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, so look, I don't know. I think you're right. I think I'm nervous.
Look, and it's hard to come back straight. But you made a good point. It's hard to come straight back in and make an immediate impact. Or not impossible, but hard. And Mills, as you say, has been out for a long time, right? Actually, both these players have. I agree. I think Adams would be nice for the maturity and the game experience. But you're right. Look, if Mills is only getting through a half in the VFL, you don't want to risk him. You don't want to risk him now for the rest of the season, do you? You want to wait till he's ready.
Yeah, there's no point. Ben Patton, different category, but he had a pretty good game. He's fitter. He's played more footy more recently. So if you need to bring in a player like that, again, I'm looking at the outs. I don't think we really need that. But I would sooner go Ben Patton than Mills and risk him for the rest of the season. And in the same vein, Tom Henley didn't really do much wrong. Somehow he's lost. He's in the wilderness. He could come in and play that sort of pressure forward role. I think he's been playing a little bit more midfield through the VFL as well as forward, but he certainly doesn't have the CV that Taylor Adams has. But that's sort of another option you could do. I don't know how many more are close, to be honest, that aren't AFL listed, on the primary list. So, yeah, but the Dees have good players everywhere. They're obviously, they struggle. They're right in the middle of the bubble, right, themselves. So they won the flag a couple of years ago and haven't really put it together again. But they go through all their, whatever it was, the end of last season, it was Clary off the rails, and then finding love again or something, or figuring out why they do it. And so you got mad players everywhere. Like Cozzy Pickett is just a gun. Salem and Bowie in the back line. Tracker, Rivers, Clary, who I think, I think he would probably fit in really well at the Swans, to be honest. But notwithstanding his, some of the off-field issues, but you feel like players that have had trouble in Melbourne come to Sydney and come good, typically, not always. But yeah, Melksham kicked 4 goals, I think 4 or 5 goals or something against the Lions. Yep. So they've got a bit of experience and potency across the line. And if they're starting to trend in the right way, is again a danger game for us in a must-win week. So yeah, mate.
2 teams probably with the skill and personnel to be higher in the ladder where they are. Noddy, I mentioned getting goals from all over the field this week. I think it'll be key. So maybe question without notice. Do you know who our top scorer for the season is? I'll ask you, and I'll ask also the sound guy, Mark Worsey, who's on the line as well. Either you know who our top scorer is for the season?
That's a good question. I would have said Amadi before his hamstring.
He is second.
He's second. And then I would probably say, I think maybe Heaney now.
No. Worsey, you want to guess?
Chad. Yeah, I was thinking Chad.
Not Chad. One more guess. It's going to surprise you.
Doss.
No. Will Hayward.
Oh, okay. Mr.
Really?
Yeah, that one makes sense. What's he on?
13 goals. He's coming something like
low. Yeah, it's pretty
30th
really?
in the Coleman. Yeah. I know. I was surprised as well. I mean, he got another goal on the weekend, right? He's been pretty consistently kicking goals, and I can't remember who got 4 against. He got 4 against someone earlier in the season. I think it was a Freo game, maybe over in the West. But yeah, look, my point was, we need some of these players that get the odd goal a game this week, I think, to get us their odd goal. We had 11 goal scorers, I think, it's GWS. And look, when they're raining in from all over, it's when we're at our best. So without the key forwards, with May down there, with the talent you mentioned, Noddy, I think we're going to need these players who get 1 or 2 to get us 1 or 2 to get us home over the Dees.
It's interesting you say that he's our top goal scorer, and he's been one of these players that has been well down on form. And I think he's averaged a couple of goals a game, but what's he on at the moment? He's on 1.4. That's probably close to his career average, to be honest.
Yeah,
1.2. So he's bang on track for him, which is interesting because I thought he was well off the pace. I mean, he's average in all these other metrics, below average handballs. He's good. He's above average for tackles, goals, and marks. So maybe I'm being too hard on him, but I think the other thing to think about is that by this point of the season last year, we were bloody flying, and I think we had like 8 Swans in the top 100 for goal kickers. We had so many avenues to goal.
We're racking up 100 points a week, weren't we, for
just
5-6 weeks.
Raining goals, but and he was part of that. I think he ended up kicking 30 or 40 himself in by the end of the season. So he's definitely one of our major goal kickers. I just wouldn't have picked that he's leading at the moment on 14. Who's our next best? Did you say Joel. It was Hayden and Joel on 11, and then Warner on 11? Yeah, okay, wasn't far off. Where's Heaney then? Come on. There he is, 10, 69th. So, we need a few more goals from everyone, don't we?
We do. Look, we're going to need them this weekend. And look, we're going to need to stop them scoring because they're scoring a lot of points, these Demons too. So, it's going to be a tough game.
I've got a question without notice. What's our highest score this year? I don't have the answer.
Great question.
I feel it was like...
Must be that North Melbourne game.
North, yeah, surely. Yeah, that was...
flogging, didn't we? Must have been.
That's right. Yeah, 117 points, I think that was.
That's
Again,
right.
that was kind of the norm last year, wasn't it? Yeah, but I think we're lucky to have gotten over 100 since then.
Well, let's move on to something then, Noddy, that I know you enjoy.
Yep.
Pew, 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 pew. Merch watch. Merch everywhere this week, mate. Merch as far as you can see. What was your? I saw you in the new Sydney jersey. Looks great on you, by the way.
Thank you.
You like that one? Any others caught your eye?
I do. Yeah. No, I think. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of cool designs around. But yeah, I quite like this current one, so I thought I'll just get that. And I'll just wear it. But yeah, look, I mean, there's plenty of cool. There's always cool jerseys. I'm probably got the softer spot for other teams' Guernseys during Marngrook or Sir Doug Nicholls round. I was confused. I watched the Giants game against Freo the other day, which was definitely a home game because it was definitely at Showground Oval. Over at Homebush there, NG Stadium, whatever they're calling it these days. But they were playing in white, which confused me. That wasn't a Freo home game, was it?
Yeah.
Surely not. I don't know. Yeah, so, look, I don't know. how about you, mate? You're probably a more diplomatic fan when it comes to this sort of stuff. You enjoyed the Brisbane Bears retro strip a couple of weeks ago.
I liked Indigenous round jersey. I liked the one that you bought. I thought it looked really good. I know you don't like talking about them, but I actually really like the Cats design this year.
Okay.
I liked the difference in the colours and the navies. So yeah, those were the two that caught my eye, I must say. Very happy with
There's
those
plenty.
things.
That's why, like most of the jerseys are pretty cool, to be honest. Obviously, if you were a fan of your club, you'd know which. You'd probably have your favourite. Indigenous Guernsey. I think my favourite so far was the one. I think it was two releases ago, which had the Black Swan. Maybe that was
Black
three
Swan
releases
one.
ago.
Yeah, the beauty. Yeah.
3. Yeah, that I just absolutely loved. Buddy was still rocking at the G and the Sydney cricket ground, that is. And I just recall that being one of my favourite ones. And obviously that first one that kicked it off, Adam Goods' mum, will always be a classic. I've got that in the cupboard. It's just a little bit tight these days. But that's all right. It's nice to look at. Once I finally get the man cave up and running, I'll pop it in pole position. But
it's all those
yeah,
weights,
mate.
Hitting the weights too hard, man.
That's it, mate. Yeah, that's it. Chunky. And I think we said I wouldn't ask this, but I'm going to ask it anyway, mate. I'm going to do it anyway because I know it's a question that comes up, and I think you even said that close to home you had that question. So, in the 2 rounds or 1 and bit rounds, it's 2 rounds. I think it's 2 rounds of Indigenous footy, or Sir Doug Nicholls round and Marn Grook. Several of the AFL teams changed their name to the corresponding Indigenous name.
Yes.
And obviously we're playing Naarm next week, or we're playing their Naarm this week. I guess we're playing Naarm next week. Maybe we're playing Melbourne next week. It's a little bit hard to know when a team starts and stops, but I guess my question is, should Sydney follow suit, given our proud Indigenous heritage and all the amazing Indigenous players we've had over the journey, and should we name ourselves? I believe it's Eora, but it could be Gadigal during these rounds. What do you think?
Yeah, well, look, it's a good question. It's another one which actually I was watching the replays with my wife, and she picked up on it. It hadn't crossed my mind, but she said, "Why do the other teams have the Indigenous names and Sydney doesn't?" And I must say, it hadn't even clicked for me. But look, I absolutely think we should. I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's good for the game. Some of the best players we've ever seen in the game have been Indigenous players, right? So I think they have a wonderful lifeblood going through the game. I love that game up in Darwin, by the way. Wonderful crowd there. Crowd was so awesome. Into it, right? Yeah. I love
that the Hawks lost. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm good friends with a Hawks fan. Sorry, Noddy, I am. He plays with my football team.
That's okay.
But he said, yeah, let's get him down in Tasmania, right? Get him down in the cold to see who wins then. It's a fair point, right? It's pretty toasty up in Darwin, but look, the crowd was heaving, right? It's a really big part of the game, and it should be. So I absolutely think we should. Yeah, I hadn't noticed it until you raised it, and my wife raised it, but it's a yes from me.
Yeah, and I think Eora Nation goes as far west as Parramatta, but I'm happy to just swallow that up into the red and the white, mate. I mean, my position on the Greater Western Sydney Giants, or the Canberra Giants, as it probably should have been. But so yeah, I think I'm Eora, because I think Gadigal is too limited to basically east and southeast of the bridge. But yeah, I'm on board, mate. I know some people have strong views on this, but I think we should embrace it and be Eora during these few weeks. I think it would be a fitting addition to everything else we do.
Well, we have a long wait to the game, Noddy, and I can tell from our conversation, I talk to you a lot, and I can tell we're both a bit tense. So any final thoughts, mate, before we wrap?
Yeah, I'm just more than anything happy that we got the win, and we're a step closer to evening out that ledger but with all the guns coming back. So
Yep.
step in the right direction.
Yeah, let's get through Mad May. At least 2 wins out of these next 3 games. At least 2 we need. Get to the bye, get some of these players back, and then kick on. Absolutely right.
Definitely.
That brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you for listening through to the end. If you have, if you made it this far, you must be doing something right. So give us a like and a follow.
Whether in person or on the potty, we look forward to whenever you can join us next time, because we did meet a fan in the drinks after the game. I think his name was Andrew. Did you?
I didn't catch his name. I shook his hand, but I didn't catch his name.
Good bloke. Very good bloke.
I was so surprised to have a fan come over and say he was a fan of. So Andrew, or we hope it was Andrew. A, would love to speak to you again, and B, thank you for coming over and telling us you're enjoying the podcast. It was very kind of you.
That's right. Every now and then it happens, but
that's right.
It's always very. It's a pleasure. Yeah. And so thank you, and look forward to you joining us next time. But until then, up the bloods. And can you Swannies? Come on, Swans. Another win. Got a dub. Let's go. Up the bloods. Come on, Swannies.
This podcast is an independent fan-run production and is in no way affiliated with the Sydney Swans Football Club, its players, or the AFL. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of the Sydney Swans or any official organisation. All commentary is intended for entertainment and discussion purposes only.